Welcome to Mr. Creepy Official, where every story is a nightmare waiting to unfold. Don't turn off the lights. If you're brave enough to survive this story, prove it, like, share, and subscribe before the darkness finds you. I was hired to watch over an empty hospital wing, which is not empty. When the administrator handed me the contract, I almost laughed. Night security for an empty hospital wing. It sounded like the easiest paycheck of my life. They were renovating the east wing of St. Augustine's Hospital, long corridors, unused patient rooms, and a nurse's station that hadn't seen activity in years. My shift was simple: stay from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., monitor the cameras, and patrol the halls every 2 hours. No patients, no staff, just silence. But from the first night, something felt wrong. The wing smelled faintly of bleach and old metal, but underneath was something else, like copper. The kind of smell you get when you bite your lip too hard. The first patrol was uneventful until I passed room 307. Its door was shut, unlike the others, which were wide open. A small yellow sticky note clung to the door. Do not open. I thought maybe maintenance left it, but when I checked the cameras later, room 307's feed was different. Every other camera looped empty rooms with the pale blue glow of street lamps outside. But 307's showed something else, a figure sitting upright in the bed. No one was supposed to be there. I leaned closer to the monitor. The figure was still, head tilted toward the camera, as though it knew I was watching. The feed glitched, static lines running down the screen, but when it cleared, the bed was empty again. I told myself it was a malfunction. Old hospital, old equipment. Nothing to worry about. At 3 a.m., during my second patrol, I found the sticky note on room 307's door was gone. The door stood slightly ajar, like someone inside had pushed it open. I didn't want to go near it. Instead, I checked the other rooms. Most were empty, just peeling wallpaper and faint outlines of where beds had been. But when I passed room 312, I froze. Someone was humming inside. A low, wavering tune, almost like a lullaby. My flashlight beam shook as I pushed the door open. The room was empty. The sound cut off instantly. I backed out, locking eyes with the open door of 307 down the hall. The gap in the doorway looked wider than before. When I returned to the nurse's station, the monitors had changed. Every single room now showed a patient in the bed. Their faces blurred, their bodies twisted, like half-developed shadows. But 307's feed was the clearest. The figure was back, sitting upright, smiling directly into the camera. And then the phone at the nurse's station rang. The hospital line. No one was supposed to be calling. I answered with a shaky, hello. A whisper hissed through the static. Why did you leave me alone in 307? My throat went dry. Who is this? I asked, trying to sound steady. The voice laughed, not like a person, but like static warping into a human tone. You know me. You've seen me. I slammed the phone down. My heart hammered so loud I could barely hear myself think. I forced my eyes back to the monitors, but the feeds had returned to normal, empty rooms again. Except for 307. That one still showed the figure. Its head lolled at a strange angle, like the neck had been snapped, but the grin stretched wider than before. I almost left right then. Screw the job, screw the paycheck. But when I pulled out my phone to call the administrator, the screen flickered black, then lit up with a message I hadn't typed. Don't leave me again. I dropped the phone. Something moved at the edge of my vision. The corridor camera at the far end showed a flicker of white. A patient gown. The figure from 307 was standing in the hallway. I grabbed my flashlight and rushed out, trying to convince myself I was being rational. If it was a squatter, or some sick prank, I had to confirm it. But when I turned the corner, the hallway stretched empty, sterile, and silent. Still, the air was colder now. Breath misted in front of my face. When I reached 307, the door had swung wide open. The bed inside was made perfectly, sheets tuck. Crisp and tight. But the walls were wrong. Every inch of wallpaper was covered in handprints. Small, childlike smears dragged downward, as if dozens of hands had clawed their way out of the bed and vanished. My flashlight sputtered, and in the flicker I saw movement, a shape standing in the corner, turned toward the wall. "Hello." My voice cracked. The figure twitched. Shoulders jerked unnaturally as it began turning its head, not its body, just the head, rotating far past what was human. I bolted, slamming the door shut behind me. When I got back to the nurse's station, the monitors no longer showed empty rooms. They showed me. Every single feed showed my body sitting at the nurse's station. Same uniform, same flashlight, same terrified expression. Only, the me on screen wasn't moving. Just staring straight at the camera, unblinking. And then, one by one, the other MES began to smile that I stumbled back from the monitors, shaking my head. No, this isn't real. But the images didn't vanish. On screen, dozens of versions of me sat frozen at the nurse's desk, all identical. And then I noticed, one of them was moving. Not me. Not here. The version on the room 307 feed was standing up, rising slowly from the chair. My own face looked drained of color, my own eyes hollow, but it smiled like it was finally awake. I turned toward the empty chair I had just left. It was still empty. For now. My phone buzzed again. Against every instinct, I picked it up. A picture message had come through. Blurry, grainy, but it was a photo of me. Standing in room 307. Smiling. Only, I had never stepped inside. Something clattered behind me. I spun and saw a wheelchair rolling down the hall, its wheels squeaking as it moved with no one pushing it. It stopped at the corner, almost like it was waiting. Then, my voice. Not echoing in my head, not distorted through static. My exact voice, calling faintly down the corridor. "Come back. You forgot to check my vitals." My skin crawled. I tried to reason it out, audio feedback, a prank, but the voice grew closer, overlapping, repeating itself with slight differences in tone. Sometimes deeper, sometimes higher, sometimes broken like a child trying to mimic me. I backed into the nurse's station, slamming the door. The handle rattled immediately, like someone outside was already trying to get in. The monitors flickered. Room by room, the cameras now showed patients filling the beds again. Their movements were jerky, mechanical, like puppets tugged by invisible strings. And then they all turned their heads toward the cameras at the same time. Every single one of them was staring at me. My flashlight rolled across the desk. I grabbed it and noticed something I hadn't before, the floor tiles leading from the nurse's station down the hall, they were wet. Like someone had dragged something heavy, leaving streaks of water. At the end of the streaks, in front of room 307, the air shimmered faintly, like heat rising off pavement. Only it wasn't heat. It was cold. So cold I could feel it pulling me, like the doorway itself was breathing. The phone rang again. I let it ring and ring until it cut off. The monitors blacked out. When they came back, only one camera was active, 307. And in the middle of the room was a bed. A figure lay under the sheet, still, as if dead. A name band glowed on its wrist. The camera zoomed in, though the system had no zoom function, and I saw my own name printed on it. I slapped the monitor, praying it was some kind of glitch. My name couldn't be on that band, it wasn't possible. But the camera held steady, zoomed unnaturally close, showing every letter of my name as if it were branded onto the patient's skin. And then the figure beneath the sheet twitched. Not a shift, not a breath. It snapped upright so violently the frame rattled. The sheet slid down, but the camera glitched before I could see its face. I backed away from the desk, my legs like jelly. The hum of the overhead lights faltered, flickering. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow. Bare. Wet. They stopped outside the nurse's station door. Knock. Once. Then again, harder. The handle turned slowly, metal grinding against metal. I shoved a filing cabinet in front of the door, heart pounding, but the knocking didn't stop. It grew faster, frantic, until it sounded like a dozen fists were hammering all at once. And then, silence. I didn't dare move. I held my breath. The silence was worse than the pounding. The monitors buzzed, static clearing into a new image. This time, the cameras didn't show the hospital rooms. They showed me. But not here. They showed me walking through the hallway outside 307. My flashlight swinging. My face pale. My eyes empty. And worst of all, behind me, in the footage, dozens of shapes followed. Shadow thin, patient gowns dragging across the tile. I felt the cold before I heard it, the door behind me opening, though I hadn't touched it. The cabinet scraped aside on its own. The air smelled of rot and iron. I spun, flashlight raised, and saw nothing. No, worse than nothing. The hallway outside was different. The clean, tiled corridor was gone, replaced by a warped version of itself. Walls buckled inward, lights pulsing like a heartbeat. Each door down the hall was now shut tight, their numbers glowing faintly red. And at the far end stood 307. Wide open. Inside was only blackness. A voice whispered behind me, so close it brushed my ear. Shift change. It's time for you to check in. I whipped around, empty. But when I looked back at the monitors, I wasn't there anymore. The cameras showed an empty nurse's station. Because I was already walking down the warped hallway, toward 307 that I don't remember standing up. I don't remember leaving the nurse's station. 1 second I was staring at the monitors, the next my boots were already squeaking across the warped tiles. My flashlight trembled in my hand, beam cutting through the distorted hall. Every door I passed hummed faintly, like there were machines running inside. Monitors beeping, respirators pumping. But this wing was empty. It had been empty for years. The doors were numbered wrong now too. Not in sequence. 303. 409. 212. 307. Always back to 307. The closer I got, the colder it became. My breath poured out in white streams. The darkness inside that room wasn't natural. It wasn't absence of light, it was presence. It felt alive, pressing against the doorway, waiting. I told myself I wouldn't step inside. I told myself I'd walk back, grab my bag, leave this cursed job behind. But then a sound rose from the dark. A heart monitor. Beep. Beep. Steady, mechanical. And beneath it, my own voice, groggy, muttering like someone coming out of anesthesia, "Where am I? What happened?" My knees buckled. That was me. That was my voice. The blackness inside 307 shifted, like a curtain of smoke parting. I could just make out a hospital bed, and someone lying in it. Me. Four lines threaded into my arm, wires taped to my chest. My eyes fluttered half open, unfocused. I stumbled backward. No. No, this isn't real. This isn't. The patient in the bed sat upright in perfect sync with me, every motion mirrored, but slower, more deliberate, like a puppet catching up to its strings. The heart monitor spiked. Beep beep beep. And then flatlined. The lights in the hall died. Total blackness swallowed everything except the glow of the open doorway. Something moved behind me. Feet shuffling. A dozen. Maybe more. Whispers crowded the dark, overlapping, all in my voice. "You shouldn't have left me. It's your shift. Check me in." Cold fingers brushed my arm. Then my neck. Then my back. I ran. Straight into 307. The darkness swallowed me whole. The darkness inside 307 wasn't empty. It moved. It pressed against my skin, thick as smoke, but cold as a morgue drawer. I pushed forward blindly, flashlight useless, the beam only lit a few feet before being eaten by the black. Then the air shifted. The floor under me was still tile, but softer, sticky. The smell of bleach was gone, replaced with something sweeter, rot mixed with formaldehyde. When my eyes adjusted, I realized I wasn't in a single room anymore. I was in an entire wing. Rows of beds stretched into the gloom, each occupied. Patients lay beneath yellowed sheets, their chests rising and falling in jerky, unnatural rhythm. Machines beeped, though most were rusted and unplugged. I stepped closer to one bed. The patient's face was covered by a breathing mask, but beneath it, their skin sagged, waxy and gray. I reached for the name band. It said my name. Every single bed had my name. The patients began to twitch in unison. Fingers curling. Heads jerking. Eyes snapping open, dozens of pairs of my eyes staring straight at me. They sat up at once. "No," I whispered, backing away. "You're not me. You're not." But the closest one pulled the mask from its face. My own lips moved, dry and cracked. "We are you. Every shift you left. Every life you walked away from. You were always the patient." The others repeated it in a chorus, a tidal wave of my voice echoing down the endless ward. Machines screamed, flatlines shrieking in unison. The walls pulsed, buckling inward like a lung. I turned to run, but the hall behind me was gone. There was only bed after bed after bed, stretching forever. And every version of me was climbing down, their bare feet slapping against the tiles, grinning like corpses that finally remembered how to walk. Somewhere, above it all, an intercom crackled to life. "Attention staff, patient in 307 is ready for discharge." And I realized with horror, they were discharging me. The intercom crackled again, louder this time, echoing down the impossible ward. "Patient 307, discharge complete." The chorus of my voices surged closer, bare feet slapping wetly against the tiles. I stumbled backward, heart hammering. Flashlight beams slicing across dozens of faces, my faces. Their smiles were too wide, their skin sagged like candle wax left to melt. They closed in, whispering the same phrase, over and over, overlapping until it roared. Check in. Check in. Check in. Hands grabbed me, cold, many of them, fingers like clamps around my arms and throat. I thrashed, but they held me effortlessly, dragging me toward one of the beds. The sheets were already pulled back, crisp and waiting. I screamed until my voice broke, but they forced me down, strapping 4 lines into my arm, electrodes across my chest. Machines beeped awake, their screens flickering to life with my vitals. And the worst part? I felt it. The straps biting into my wrists. The prick of the needle sliding into my vein. The shallow breath of a body that wasn't entirely mine anymore. The monitors around me showed my heart rate, spiking, faltering. On the ceiling above the bed, a camera lens blinked red. I could see myself on the monitor at the nurse's station. The real me, slumped in the chair, eyes vacant, body still. Security guard. No. Never. I had been here all along. I wasn't hired to watch the hospital. I was admitted. Patient 307. The machines shrieked in unison, alarms blaring, and as the shadows swarmed closer, the intercom gave its final announcement, flat and cold. Shift complete. Prepare for the next admission. Darkness swallowed everything. And when I opened my eyes again, I was sitting at the nurse's station. The monitors hummed softly. Every feed showed empty rooms. Except 307. Inside, I was lying in the bed. Smiling.